Hello and welcome back to the next part in my modding of my Mike Bloomfield telecaster guitar that I built last year. I'm kind of sorry if my voice sounds a little bit rough. I have a cold and I've been working through getting rid of it, but it's not really gone yet. But anyway, it won't discourage me from today's build thing, which is we're gonna take this guitar right here and we're gonna reshape the neck. So some of you might remember this guitar and some of you maybe saw the last mod video where I got a new neck for it. It was a total coincidence, an accident that happened. I was just walking through my local secondhand shop and I found this neck and I thought it was too much fun that I was building a replacement neck, and I have it right here. Actually, I was gonna do a matching headstock thing. We're gonna use this for something else at some point, but I just thought it was actually more fun to just use this one because it's a Harley Benton kit. It's a Harley Benton neck. It just felt like it was supposed to go together. And so in this video, we are gonna reshape this neck because I've been playing the guitar a little bit and I've been thinking about it and feeling it, and I've been comparing it to some of my other guitars, and I've realized that I want this neck to be a little bit slimmer. It has a very round shape and it's actually pretty thick. It's about 22 millimeters at the 2nd fret and 24 at the 12th. And so taking off just a little bit will help this guitar become a much nicer guitar, I think. I don't want this to be a telecaster. I feel like a classical telecaster should have a really thick neck and you should have to like wrap your hand around it almost like a baseball bat. I just don't really think that this is a telecaster any longer. If you disagree, please write a comment below telling me why you disagree, because I don't feel like it's very much telecaster anymore, and with some of the other things that I have planned for later videos, it's going to turn even less telecaster, but we'll talk about that when we get to it because it's not really a part of this video. But anyway, that's what we're going to do in this video. And first, I'm just going to explain a little bit about reshaping necks because there are a couple of things that we just need to talk about, because I don't want any of you guys to destroy your guitar's neck if you want to reshape it. So let's jump into it. So the first thing that you actually have to think about is the guitar neck actually too thick for you, or is it just the shape? I would say that in 90% of the cases, the neck is actually not that thick. It might be kind of hard thing to explain, but it's the shape of the neck. Most people who think that the guitar neck is too thick actually just want something that is flatter in the back. If you look at this neck, and it's going to be kind of hard for me to show you because it's hard to show the roundness of it, but it's very round, and if you just flatten out the middle part of the neck going down here like this, you will obviously take off some of the wood from the neck, but you don't have to take off that much. And the thing is, you have a truss rod inside of it, and if you don't know what a truss rod is, it's a metal steel bar basically that goes through the neck, and by screwing it and bending it, you adjust the relief in the neck. And if you take off too much, there are two things that can happen. And the first one is that you remove so much wood that when you adjust the truss rod, it will just break the wood and pop out basically through the back. And that's not something you really want to happen, because there is really no turning back from that. You're gonna have to replace the neck if that happens. And the second thing is that you could actually route or rasp, or however you're gonna go about removing the wood, you could remove too much wood and just go straight into the truss rod, and that is basically the same thing as the truss rod popping out through the back. And if you look at like reshaped neck horror pictures on like Google Images or something like that, you will find a bunch of people who have just gone through the neck. Now what you should do is you should measure, and I'm gonna see if I can show you this. You should measure how far down the truss rod goes. You can just measure in this hole with a calips and up to where the fretboard starts. Basically, if you use your calips like this, you poke it down like that into the hole like this, and then you can just adjust it to see how far down the truss rod is. And then you will know that, okay, this neck is maybe, let's say, 22 centimeters thick, but say 10 millimeters go away by having a truss rod. So the thickness on the back is only 12 millimeters. Now, how much of that can you remove? It sort of depends on what wood it is, and it also depends on the quality of the wood, because not all maple is equal. But I would say that if you have a maple neck and you leave about 5 millimeters on the back, maybe 6 millimeters to be safe at the thickest point I'm talking about now from the truss rod, not the entire neck, just the extra, you are getting pretty close to where I would say that you need to stop. And I would probably leave more than that. So, for example, this neck is 22 millimeters thick. all in all. And so removing 2 millimeters and leaving at 20 millimeters, or really removing 3 millimeters, which is what I'm gonna do, that's safe. And I would say no guitar neck of any like famous brands or any big brands are really much thinner than that. Like the Wizard neck on an Ibanez is not, I think they are somewhere around 18.5 if I remember correctly. It's been a long time since I played one of them, but they're basically somewhere around that. And 18 mils, you know, it's not that much different than 20, and I think it's like 18.5. So if you remove 1 millimeter of your neck and, you know, just blend out, because obviously if you remove right here you will have a new edge to reshape, but if you reshape it and just remove 1 mil, you're gonna see a big difference. And also, if you remove 1 mil of the neck and everything works out great and you just feel like, I need to remove a little bit more, you can just sand the guitar neck a little bit more, remove 1/2 mil or 1/3 of a mil or something like that, you know, a super tiny amount, and go a very safe route. And that's better. Just keep in mind that you need to look up what kind of truss rod you have in your guitar neck, because some necks have thin truss rods and they're made by some hardwood that will keep the strength more easily, and some are made of some softer woods and they have bigger truss rods. So what I'm saying here, you have to think about the thickness of the neck and the thickness of the truss rod and how much wood you have between the truss rod and the actual back of the neck. And I just realized that I did a mistake in telling you these things, because when I said the thickness of the neck is 22, that's with the fretboard, but you have to remove the fretboard from your calculation. You have to also measure the fretboard, which in my case is almost 3 mils, which means that the neck is 19 mils thick, which means that I have 9 millimeters between the back of the truss rod and the outer side of the neck at its thickest point, which means that's not a lot of wiggle room for any wood to be removed, and so we have to be really careful. And I think that now that I remeasured this, I'm probably not going to remove 3 mils. I'm probably just going to remove 2 mils just to keep it on the safe side. Might remove a little bit less, like 1.5. I don't really know. You have to keep in mind also that you have sanding to do, and sanding can take off more than what you are expecting it to do. I'm just quickly going to pop this neck off. There are 4 bolts in the back here, and they're really easy to remove. It's just a screwdriver. Pull them out, and so see you in a bit. Okay, so this is my guitar neck sled, I suppose is what you could call it, or something of that fashion. And it's super simple and easy. And if you don't have one of these, you should probably make one. And all it is a flat board with 2 boards on the side, and they are planed perfectly, straight and even, and they're equal heights and everything. You know, kind of things that we all have learned to love. And I use this for so many things. And now what I'm going to use it for is basically as a sled for my router. And so I'm just going to put my router on top of here, and it's basically just going to sit like this and go back and forth like this. I'm basically doing something a little bit different now, which is that I'm going to explain what I'm doing and I'm going to show everything with my hands, and then I'm just going to go and route it. Because usually when I route stuff, you get to see me route stuff, but it's not really anything to see, and you don't really get any understanding of what I'm doing maybe through just watching me do that. So instead, I'm just going to tell you what I'm doing, and the next time you see me, it will be already routed, basically. I hope that makes sense. I hope that you're okay with it, and that you'll write comments below telling me which you prefer. If you just want to see me do the routing, or me explaining and showing you with things, you know, which is better, basically, is what I'm trying to say. Anyway, if this is the router, we pretend, it's basically just going to go across like this, and I'm going to put the blade of the router, which is basically something like this, but it's going to be a flat one, down to the wood like this, and then I'm going to put my stop down to a mil or something like that, so that it can't go any further down. And then I'm just going to plunge it down, and I'm going to go back and forth like this, and I'm going to remove a mil on the back. And I'm going to stay a bit away from the round over part, so I'll stop somewhere around here maybe, and somewhere around here, which you can't see what I just did, but I did a little mark down there. And it's just because when it comes to the round over, it's better to do that by hand and make sure it's reshaping correctly and looks nice, instead of having a gouge mark. And so if we stay fairly far away from the round over, which is up here, and so then we have a lot of space to work with the blending in of the new depth of the neck and the old neck pocket here, because we don't want to change anything of this area here, because that's where it clamps down to the body. And if we change anything here, we are gonna end up with things being messy when it comes to putting the neck back on and making everything straight. So we're gonna stop around here. You don't have to measure out where to stop, just give yourself some excess to do some of the blending. It could be just the thickness of your thumb or something. I have a little bit more to say on the safe side, and I'm doing the same thing up here. I'm basically just giving myself a little bit of wiggle room. So I hope that makes sense. The router is gonna just sit on top and go back and forth like this and remove my 2 mils or 1.5 mil or something like that. I'm just gonna come back off that and I'll talk to you again. Okay, so I've routed out the neck a little bit and you can see what it looks like now, and it looks super rough, but it feels a little bit nicer actually. I feel like maybe I should have taken off a little bit more. I feel like I stayed on the safe side, which is, you know, not really how I like to roll. I kind of want to go crazy and just, you know, regret what I've done. But anyway, I think this is going to be nice. Now, some of you are going to say, well, isn't this changing the shape of the neck? And yes, that's the point. The point is to make this have a more flat back than it used to have. So when we go to reshape this, we're going to remove a little bit in the middle here, because we're going to sand it and we're going to blend, but we're basically not going to do that much. Here on the sides, you can see it's a very rough edge. You don't want that, but we can really quickly get that to be somewhat nicer. So now I'm just taking a regular razor blade, and we're not gonna really go that way, but you can do that if you wanna do that, and we're just blending it out. And you can see quickly now, if you compare the two sides, how fast I rounded that over and smoothed it into the rest of the neck. And so we're just gonna go over the entire neck and do that. And I think I'm gonna use a rasp. I haven't really decided yet what I'm gonna use, but you could use a rasp, you could use a file, you could use sandpaper, you could even use a sanding machine and just go over it like this and sand it over. You could definitely go with a razor blade like this, and since I have the razor blade out, I might start with it and just go over the edge like this and just blend out that harsh router edge. And first we're just going to focus on the middle, and we'll come back to this later, because first we just want to make sure we have a sort of ballpark reshape, you know, something that is like, okay, we're moving in the right direction. If you feel like, oh no, I need to remove a little bit more, but it's less than like a mil or half a mil, it's not much at all, just sand it. Just sand that final little extra you want to remove, and don't go back into the router if it's so little. I mean, if it's more than a mil that you need to remove, fine, go back to the router. But if it's just, I just wish it was a tiny bit thinner, it's okay to go by hand. And I'm just doing one side right now real quickly while talking to you, because I kind of want to show you how, first of all, how quickly it goes to do this if you do it the way I do it. And you don't need to use router to do it. It's just that I feel like it's a very easy way to remove a lot of wood quickly and getting it even and straight across the entire neck, and also getting it down to the right thickness and stuff like that. And I actually measured a bunch of my guitar necks when I was preparing to do this video, and I just noticed that, like, except for one of my guitars, they were all in the ballpark of about 1 or 2 mils thinner than this one. So I really didn't need to remove more. And the reason why I was on the cusp of removing 3 mil instead was simply because I have a guitar neck that has a 19 mil thickness, and it's that neck I made as a copy of a Ibanez guitar that I used to have. Was an old gem, and I just really liked that neck. So if I roll this neck here, you can see that it's fairly quickly actually become very round over. Obviously this side still looks the way it used to, but this side has some of the round over. So I'm just going to go over the entire neck and just actually use this razor blade and scrape away and take away. And I'm not going to take away that much in the middle at all. It has to get a little bit of a cleanup because I do have some burn mark here. Okay, so the neck has been reshapen and I'm pretty happy with it. It feels nice in the hand. It obviously needs a sanding, but that's not what we're gonna do right now. I feel like it's a big difference actually. I can wrap my hand around it a lot more. This is a tool. It looks most like a knife. It's a chisel, but it's an angle chisel with an edge on both sides. And I don't think they are actually made anymore. I don't really know what this is. It's some sort of tool, obviously, but I don't actually... just know it's a vintage tool, and it's very good for the shaping of the like horn parts, or whatever you want to call them, on a guitar. And so that's what I'm going to use to just blend into this routing here. And I'm going to sand and I'm going to reshape it a little bit more then, but to do the bulk, I use this. You can use a regular like wood carving knife. I've done that too. Works almost as good. But if you have any vintage tool shops around, go and take a look and see if you can find something that looks like a chisel, but it's angled and it has the edge on both sides. So it's basically like the tip of a knife, basically. You could also just take a chisel and ground it like this. But hopefully you can see that I'm very easily just taking away the bulk of this and reshaping it and blending, something like that. I don't have to go super overboard because we are going to sand the entire neck, and we're going to sand up here as well. And now I just have to do the same thing I just did down here. Carve away and blend out these parts. Okay, so here's the neck right now. And from the front, you can't really see that I've done anything. And on the back, I don't know if you can see it. It's a lot flatter in the back. It's about the same thickness all around now. Quickly, I just want to say something that I totally forgot and that I need to say. And that is, you need to straighten the neck out. Just make the neck as straight as you possibly can. And then put it into the jig and plane it down. The neck is pretty much done now. I am fairly comfortable neck. I might finalize it a little bit more. I don't really know. But I'm pretty happy. I think this is going to be a great change. It feels really different, and that's the thing. You can change the feel of the neck so much by just taking off a tiny bit in the back and rounding it over. So if you have a neck and you think it's crazy thick, you want to remove half of the meat on the back, just try to remove a mil and round it over and change the shape from being a very round one to a more flat one, and see what that does for you. This is going to be great. And if I measure this now, which I think we should do, we've gone down to 20 mil here, which is 2 mils less, and we've gone down to 22 at the 12th, which is 2 mils lesser there as well. So all in all, I've removed 2 mils. At this point, I would suggest you sand the back of the neck up to 400 grit, so you take all the steps in between, because that's where it starts to get really nice. And then you dampen it with a damp piece of cloth or something, and that will raise the grain. And then you sand it back with 400 grit again, and then you can put some sort of finish over it, like gunstuck, true oil finish, something like that. You can use a tongue oil or something else. If you want to lacquer the guitar neck, you can do that. Anyway, that's pretty much all there is to it. There isn't really that big of a thing. You just have to be really careful and think about small details like measuring out where your truss rod is. You can also look up, if you have a neck and you know what manufacturer it is, what kind of truss rod they use. That's basically the end of this video. I'm going to sand it and I'm going to lacquer it, but it's not really a part of this video. It's going to be a part of the next video, because the next step in this guitar's life and in this guitar neck's life is relicking it. Because if you look at the body, it's a relict body. And the reason why it's relict is because I made it to look like Mike Bloomfield's guitar, because it's part of my Mike Bloomfield's guitar series of videos where I'm basically showing you how I would have cut the horn of Mike Bloomfield's guitar in a more aesthetical way. So the whole premise, or sort of like whatever you want to call it, of this series is basically just like how I would slowly turn a guitar that was right-handed into a left-handed guitar, and like showing you all the different steps in modding the guitar. If you remember the old neck had clay dots on it, something that I did when I built the guitar, and I really like that, and so I kind of want to put them on this. But I also had a video where I showed you how to put in clay dots, and a comment I got on that was, well, do you know how to put in trapezoids? And I think the guy commented that was being a little, tongue-in-cheek, trying to troll me a little bit. Not in a mean way, but just, like, pretty easy to replace the dots on a fretboard. But anyway, my point is, I've been thinking that maybe, because I definitely know how to replace, dots for trapezoids. It's master. I'm kidding. Maybe that's something I should do. Maybe I should put in trapezoids instead. If you think I should do that, also let me know what you think I should put in, because it doesn't have to be mother of pearl. It could be anything. We could experiment with resin. I've already done that though on my turning a right-handed guitar into a left-handed guitar video, where I did resin inlay on those trapezoids. They were a lot of fun to do, but it's not really a challenge. I could also do something completely different. I don't know, do some weird dragon inlay or something like that. It's been a while since I did a fancy inlay, and I'm missing it a little bit, but I have some fun workings planned for later this year that I hopefully get around to, and if I do, we're gonna have some fun inlays as well, because I've been really, like, for the channel's sake, doing things that are like working on guitars that already exist, brand names like Harley Benton and Squire and Epiphone, things like that. I do actually enjoy building a guitar from scratch, more so actually, I think. So I've already made this joke once and it wasn't really that fun. Anyway, until next time, stay awesome and cool, and go and reshape the back of one of your guitar necks, but be careful so you don't, have to throw it out and then come yelling at me in the comments.